Hello and welcome everyone. I hope you all here and everyone survived the absolute bloodbath we experienced on Friday in the market. It was pretty bad and a lot of people were shocked by what we saw. Not surprisingly, if you're in the market, then it was not a good day, and we will talk today about what we can expect for next week and what we will do. I'm reading your comments. What we will do about it. So first of all, what happened, and we are not going to make it long. We have a lot of things to discuss. I also want to introduce you to a SpaceX DCF model. We are making progress, but things are actually very complicated, and there are some very important glitches in the matrix, in the financial projection matrix with SpaceX, that are very unusual. I'm not going to go into all details, but we will get to it later. So first, let's start with the market. The absolute horrendous bloodbath. We have seen the worst day for a year or more, over a year, for the NASDAQ. You have, I'm sure, heard about it. And we have to discuss what we do now. So let me share the screen to get to it. I don't want to inflict too much pain into everyone, so we are not going to stare at this too long. But Tesla down an unbelievable 6.56%, $27. I did not expect that. I was not well prepared for that. I took a major hit. I fortunately got out of like half of my positions by 410 or something, by 4 or 5 or something, when I realized this is really bad. And when we look at the bigger picture here, not out of my core position, I still was leveraged. I was still full long. It's like, it was pretty bad, but things like that happen. That's part of the course. But when we look at the NASDAQ, that's the shocking thing. It's not even Tesla, 6.5% down. It is the freaking NASDAQ, 4.18% down, a complete bloodbath. And it didn't even end super well. If you want to get technical, it's a weird sell-off because it was so linear. That's not normally how it goes. Normally in panic situations, what you see is that you go sideways, you start dropping, and then into the close, it gets exponentially worse. If you see something like that on Friday, it is a very bad sign. So if you go sideways, choppy, go slowly down and accelerate into the close, that's very bad. I had this a few times that I really vividly remember. Then you will have a bad Monday, a disaster Monday. Here we see something very, very different. We see constant, relentless selling pressure very linearly. Here it tries to bounce but fails with a bounce, kind of, a little bounce. That makes me a little less concerned. So my bottom line is, I'm not going to make it too complicated, but when you look at the NASDAQ long term, we went on an absolute ridiculous killer rally, right? Look at this. We are up 9% for the freaking year, or for the year, 10% up for the year, but much more importantly for the month, now we're down for the month. So not for the month. Since March 30th, we have been on an insane rally. We are still up. Let that sink in. We are still up 25%. Do you understand what that means? We are up 25% on the entire market over March, April, May, over 3 months. Okay, if you're 25% up over 3 months, that is ridiculous. That is kind of overboard. And I think that's exactly what we are seeing. So what we are seeing is profit taking. We are seeing the moment in time where the market decides, you know what, I need to take some profits here. I had insane profits on my, not me, the market says insane profits on Micron, insane profits on semiconductors. Let's take risk off the table. Let's just cash in because this can't go on like this. Let's take it off the table. What I also see in the market is we are incredibly bullish. Fundamentally, we are on an absolute bull run, on a killer bull run. All the fundamentals look better and better by the day. I just saw profitability numbers and margin numbers for the S&P. It's insane. We see an explosion of profits, explosion of margins, all that stuff. That is the real driver behind the rally. I would classify that as a typical breather, maybe a little panic-induced breather. Not even panic when you look at how the day behaved. This is not panic. This is a constant selling, profit-taking pressure. So I classify this as typical breather in a strong bull market that got a little ahead of itself, or got a little extreme. Let me put it like this. This is an extreme bull run here. And therefore, we are taking a breather. Of course, the big question is, what happens next week? Now, next week, here's the problem with next week. Why this is going to be one of the most complicated weeks ever for Tesla. Tesla is now completely oversold. This is ridiculous. Can Tesla fall to 350? Of course, it's Tesla. It can do whatever it wants. But everyone knows that what I said is actually right, that we are at the precipice of robotaxi scaling. That's not a secret. JP Morgan came up with a insane price target increase. That is a little ridiculous. JP Morgan is, of course, one of the book runners for SpaceX. So they're doing Elon a favor, upgrading Tesla, something they should not do normally because it's ridiculous to just change your model like this. But here's a fun little story. That is why Tesla is actually relatively not down as much, even though you think 6.5% is brutal. But if the NASDAQ is down 4.18%, of course, Tesla should be down, if it just goes with the market with no bad news, should be down 8.5%, 8.3%. But JP Morgan came out with this Tesla price target change from what, 150 to 475? Are you kidding me? I mean, I'm all for it, but that's completely ridiculous. This is just banking corruption at its finest. JP Morgan didn't pay attention, put some very average auto analyst on this. Auto analyst like, oh, it's only cars, it's $150. Then JP Morgan said, oops, biggest IPO in history. We are running the books. Can you please up the price target, kick this guy out, put another analyst in? Nix, I was like, okay, I get the mission. Let's make it 475 like all the other analysts. Ridiculous. But that JP Morgan is still the biggest bank, so that probably helped Tesla's share price. As I said, you might think I'm crazy. Asking me, Joe, are you crazy? How did this help the share price? But you have to be rational. 6.5% when the NASDAQ is down 4.18. This is a disaster. Normally, Tesla should be down 8.4%, but it's down 2% less. So I don't want to spread hopium here, but I think tactically, this is just a breather in the market, which means this is not a crazy sell-off, in my opinion. You know that I speak very frankly to you guys. I'm taking extreme risks here, making such a clear statement, because I will look like an extreme dummy if we go down in flames next week, but I just don't think we will. There's just too much bullishness on here. This was just no way out that we take a breather. It was a pretty brutal breather, but that's just what we do. Now we are basically flat for the month. So, which means we are taking a breather since technically, what is this, May 7th? So for an entire month now we are flat. Hopefully that's enough for the market. It doesn't mean we have a V-shape recovery, even though we could. But I would say, nah, this sell-off is not compelling given the insane bullishness that we see. Now, why is next week so tricky then? Why don't I just say, oh, relax, it's going to be fine? Because we have the SpaceX IPO. And you guys know that I said, I'm not worried about Tesla selling off into SpaceX. But that doesn't mean, because I think we have enough depth in the market, we have more than enough liquidity. This is about $75 billion. That's not a lot of money. That was a $2.5 trillion sell-off alone in one day. But, of course, we have to be a little cautious. We don't know exactly what's going to happen. And the probability that SpaceX has some disruptive effect on the market it's possible. The probability that SpaceX goes up a lot because it's the most hyped IPO in history is possible. The probability that some Tesla investors, when they see SpaceX going up on Friday, maybe get cold feet with their Tesla shares and sell them and jump into that is possible. The reverse is possible. Maybe SpaceX goes up 20% and people think, oh, I should also get Tesla, who are a SpaceX investor. Who knows? All I can say is that there is volatility potential in both directions. And that makes it very tricky. It's an incredibly difficult or impossible to predict situation. I would just bake in volatility. Plus, we saw this extreme sell-off on Friday, which means it's unclear. Are we going to bounce hard, go back to 420? Are we going to fall down to 380 on Monday, on Tuesday, on Wednesday? Once that happens, what happens with the IPO? So I think prepare for some volatility, guaranteed in some direction. Very unlikely we just stay at 390. So this is all happening. And then on top of all of that stuff, I think if I'd made any mistakes short term on my trades, I went in too hard bullish on Tesla. Why? Because I knew that robotaxi catalysts, if I'm right and they're happening in June, are happening in the second half, not in the first half. So why did I have so much exposure and took that 2 week, including the SpaceX IPO of risk? I think that was a little bit of a mistake. I should have been a little less aggressive, but it's smart to be in it slightly leveraged in my opinion. So the question is, what do we do now? The problem is, I think at this point, is there more downside? Of course, but this downside would be extremely tactical. It's completely ridiculous. If we sell off actually more, then it's time to absolutely double down. My prediction is this market is absolutely not gonna crash, in my opinion, right now. I think if we crash, we go up another 10% or something, and then we can crash in September or something. But this is not the time to crash. I'm pretty convinced I'm right about this. So if that's the case, and we go down more with Tesla, then it's really time to double down. I think in general, it's also time to double down, but not on margin, not leverage, because you have that volatility of SpaceX IPO. And the next problem is that the World Cup is starting this weekend. And this is our first big potential to actually see a cybercap launch. Of course, we don't know if it's going to happen, but we know they have accumulated all these cybercaps. We know it's in Dallas. We know in Houston, we know in Austin. We know the World Cup has major games in Dallas. It would be the perfect PR opportunity, plus they're ready, plus the cybercaps are already in Dallas. It's not a guarantee it happens, but I would really not be surprised if it happens. And if it happens, I think we can go to 490. I said it again and again. I think we can easily go, absolutely easily, to 490 in June. And maybe right now everyone thinks this is impossible, but don't forget, this is Tesla. It takes exactly 3 days, 10%, 5%, 6% up, and you're at 490. In an instant, you can be at 490 if something happens, plus the market recovering. So you understand why this is tricky. It's very tricky. If you get too greedy and too leveraged, can this thing, if things go wrong, go to 380, 370, maybe even 350 if the market actually keeps selling off? Not even in a crazy crash, just another 4% down. Yes, we go to 350. So if you're on margin and leverage to the max, you can get murdered. But can we also go to 490 in absolutely no time? Like the Monday after this Monday, can we be at 490? Absolutely, no doubt. So there you have it. Now we are entering into a high volatility, big diverging scenario, short-term options. We could end up 10 days from now at 490 or at 350. That is not a normal scenario. Both scenarios are really reasonable. I would say maybe more 380 and 490, but that's absolutely in the cards. And if this thing goes to 490, and robotaxi doesn't scale fast after the initial deployment of cybercaps, it's going to drop back. I also said that. It's going to fall back. Plus, we have the whole crazy SpaceX situation. So June is going to be a little bit exhausting, and we need to be smart. So I think it's important to be long. I will definitely stay leveraged, but not to the point where I get killed if it drops to 350, but to the point where I can sustain this, even though it's painful if it happens, because I do think we have this inflection scenario. So let's go to the questions quickly before we jump into SpaceX, because I want to show you guys some work in progress, but with SpaceX, there's some very interesting things coming out of the modeling. And we will look at some news in Pioneer Lands daily, just going through the news. You know that we have now very nice news technology that helps us keep track of everything. I can also show you a preview of something extremely cool. on Pioneer Lens. Let's see. Questions. Let's go from the beginning before SpaceX. So, I was a little late. Guten Abend, love from Norway. Oh, we have Norwegians who speak German. Guten Abend. Have a trevlig kväll. I can only speak a little Swedish. Hope it's similar in Norsk. Please feed me copium. Well, I hope it was enough copium. A little bit of copium. Good morning. Time to double down. Yeah, I outlined that, I hope. Bloodbath, that was nothing. It was a one-day bloodbath on Nasdaq, but you're right. On any kind of scale, that was nothing. Guten Abend aus NRW. Kölle. Where in NRW? Cypress Hill, 2007. Where in NRW? North Rhine-Westphalia. Tesla will hit 356, then explode to 534. Mark Weiberts, this is a bold prediction. Well, if you have to put some timelines on this, because sure, but without time. Coming from Queen Creek, Arizona. Where's Queen Creek? I don't know. I've been to Tucson and to Phoenix a lot, but Queen Creek sounds lovely. I did not have one stock that was in the green. The first time I've ever had that happen. Well, Austin 4, it was a freaking bloodbath. But I've seen much worse. But it was a surprise bloodbath and pretty extreme for a single day. I agree the market has to rally. There is just too much profit with companies exploding with business. Yes, Austin 4, but I wouldn't guarantee it rallies on Monday, but yeah, we have too much pressure, upwards pressure. This cannot be a sustained crash. Too much profit. God, this whole scrolling thing. So annoying. I agree the market has to rally. There's too much. I stopped selling to watch this video. I don't know what that means. SpaceX, Cypress Hill. No one noticed that in the video clip from Die Welt, the German news broadcast about the SpaceX IPO, New Glenn was shown in the background. Yeah. Idiots. We still have time in June to rebound. I think there will be a total rebound. That's what I think. You have to be cautious, right? You have to be prepared, but I think so. Pee-wee says, same here, maybe people are raising cash for the IPO. No, you have to understand, this was not about Tesla. Tesla actually performed pretty well, even though that's hard to believe at 6.5% negative, but it performed pretty well compared to the market. So this was a market sell-off. It was clearly widespread profit taking. We have here strong labor data, no improvements with Iran, all hawkish. I think that's over-interpreted. By the way, I think the labor data might have influenced it. The scare, oh, we have labor data, oh, therefore inflation might go up, therefore the Fed might hike rates or not cut. But I think these are all excuses, to be honest. This was just profit taking. This happens. You have to look at the big picture. We had too much of a freaking rally. I mean, you have to look at the big picture. Look at NASDAQ. I mean, look at this. 25% up the entire market in 3 months. That's an insane rally. It is not sustainable. So there needed to be some reckoning. Even in the most bullish of bull markets, you need pullbacks like that. After 25% in the market in 3 months, it's insane. So that's why I'm not too surprised, big picture. You don't need a reason to sell off like that. You need absolutely no reason other than it went up too much. Oh, we have so many comments. Tesla's bid of 2 is with the S&P 500, not the NASDAQ. Look it up, Michael. It's also with the NASDAQ, to my knowledge. Robotaxi, 30 fucking unsupervised cars, and we're into June. I know. Let's see what happens. Radio silence on Optimus is bullish. There was actually some... I will have a robot video probably out next week on Figure 1. They show very cool overviews now of all their produced robots. So there is a lot of stuff happening, and this total silence on Optimus, I agree. I think it's bullish, but I think Elon's also very distracted. SpaceX is the biggest operation ever in history, so this is distracting. Cypress Hill, Duisburg, a beautiful city. Just joking, not that beautiful, but great people. Duisburg in NRW. Did Put strategy survive? Did Put strategy survive? Oh, Put strategy. Oh, you mean not strategy, not micro strategy. You mean, no, of course not. I needed to close half of my short puts position. I got totally killed, of course. Let's not sugarcoat it. That was pretty bad. But that's why you have to pay attention. If you get out quick enough, yeah. I didn't have margin calls, but I didn't let it come to that point. But now the important question is, what do you do next? So it's always important to stay out of the margin call territory and not take that much risk. And I know it's very stomach churning, but if we see the market now bottoming or, of course, starting to recover, it's very hard to see how this sell-off continues unless it just keeps continuing right on Monday. I think you never know, that could happen. But once it stops, I think it will stop soon and it will continue the rally. And that is very challenging from a Tesla alpha perspective, because what do we do next? We are going into this crazy phase. It's very, in my opinion, from a risk return, from an odds perspective, very important to be long Tesla, but you cannot take margin risk right now because this is just too much choppiness risk. Merger SpaceX in a second. 17 EV says, yes, that was good copium. Thank you. And what I was thinking for myself, glad to hear you say though, really. Yeah, I think big picture is this is not a crash scenario. Absolutely not a crash scenario. This is absolutely a profit-taking scenario. Can it extend into Monday or next week? Sure, we can get into a choppiness thing, but I think it will stop falling very quickly and start like jumping around. And I think it will then continue the bull run for June. That is what I think. I think bigger crashes are not even possible as long as everything goes up so much. I think we'll get on another crazy run and then crash again, maybe a little harder in fall. But who knows? We don't have to, like, who cares if Monday continues or not continues? Monday, a V-shaped rally, and then Tuesday continues. Like, who knows? We are now in a little bit of a breather situation. So what else do we have? I had a CyberCap test vehicle pull up next to me Friday. Wild says Wildcat Mahone. Where do you live, Wildcat Mahone? What state? I don't see how Tesla will not hit 500 plus knowing a merger is coming and SpaceX will have major things. Yeah. My strategy, and Milhoville says, my strategy was based on Tesla minimum price 410, so that was main missed bet for margin. Yeah. If these things happen, you have to readjust while it happens. Because like once it falls, it can fall a lot. Hi from London, says Acrimac. Do you think Trump's comment on the government investing on AI companies will give us a V recovery? I mean, he's trying. I think if I had to bet, I would say V-shaped recovery is the most likely. Continued sell-off possible. Another violent down day? I don't think so. But can we go another 1% down or something? Sure. I think the most likely is a recovery V-shape. And then maybe, I think V-shape recovery is the most likely on Monday. But then it's very possible that we take more breathers, go down again on Tuesday, go down again on Wednesday, flatline, something like that. Austin suburbs. Well, in Austin is where the action is. Wildcat Mahone. So yeah, there are lots of cybercaps around there. Okay, so I wanted to also comment quickly on I promised you a SpaceX model. This turns out to be a little more complex because this is just all very crazy. I can show you where we are at with this thing. I give you a first glimpse, but don't, this is actually very complex. So we have Starlink here, we have launch services, government defense, we have XAI, which is the digital human. That's where the most money is, the Anthropic kind of model. Then we have Earth and space compute. This is the big compute build out. And then we had to, we are now fine tuning the DCF model. We had to invent a terminal fate situation. That's what I did today to actually be more realistic, because right now we're going until 2040. Then it drops off to the terminal rate, which is only 3% growth, which is totally unrealistic. So now we are building out basically a 100-year model that is unfortunately necessary to actually get to realistic situations. So we are doing this with support of AI, but it needs to be correct. So don't quote me on anything yet. This is actually not realistic. So we have, after risk application, fair share price of $196, but this is not the correct price, or 221 in 2026. I am seeing a surprise coming here for us. And that surprise is that I always thought, I had the discussion with CERN, I was agreeing with CERN, but I said it's slightly overvalued, or not overvalued, but too high at IPO, then will drop and then go up. And that's a lot of people say that. But the more I'm looking into these numbers, the more I think SpaceX, and don't quote me on it, we are not done, but I tell you my gut feeling based on the modeling that we are doing and the fine-tuned model we are getting into now. I think when I'm modeling this out, and once I'm done, I will give you a bigger video, but it's going to be very complicated, like, to get there. I think when I really model this out and get to the base case of what SpaceX is actually doing, that the very surprising outcome here, it doesn't necessarily change my attitude that I don't want to participate in the IPO, because I think you will get it cheaper. I think this intuition of mine is probably right. But the discounted cash flow, the enterprise value, the current present value might be dramatically undervalued. So that's an interesting situation and surprising to me. And I mean dramatically. The assumption that led me there, I'm still modeling this out in some more detail. But I can already see what's going to happen here. I think the end outcome could be that SpaceX is just dramatically undervalued at $2 trillion, which is crazy. And so from there, we have to think about it. And when I look at the story, and I mean undervalued, including the risk, including considering the risk, the market opportunity here and the technology and the moat and the forcing function and the push forces that push money into SpaceX as revenue and margins are just absolutely enormous. And so I'm getting a little more greedy about SpaceX, even though I don't want to buy, I will only buy minute shares, once it's out, because I really do think this thing has to crash at some point in between. But I think it's dramatically undervalued. I will get you more numbers soon. Every tech stock other than Alphabet was down Friday, yes. AI has peaked. No, it has peaked for now. So Mark JMSDLN says, the NASDAQ fixed IPO rules, so in the short term, there will be a force feed of SpaceX and dropping OpenAI into index funds. Yes, even though S&P says they are not going to include it, so that's gone. That's a short-term fix for insiders, but this will be put a pin in the AI balloon before the end of the year, while the 3 IPO insiders gorge on forced buys in their shares. Well, the last piece is true, but I think AI is underrated. The more I'm looking into this, especially SpaceX. James says, I have my SpaceX IPO shares locked in on Robinhood. Good. I think long term there is no doubt this is good. Wolf Snow, hi Joe, I now own Tesla shares and I will invest into SpaceX because no one really can answer where any of them will go in the next 60 days. Sure, it's not easy. Carmelo Baresi, hi Joe. There's also a major technical issue on the chart. We are basically at levels reached November 1st, 2021, below the subsequent day high of 1414. We definitely need to break out of this range. Yes. I think Tesla will be at 1,000 per share at merger. This is how Elon honors his loyalty. I don't think 1,000 per share, but maybe 750. That's roughly 2 trillion, I think. 2.5. How did I get to 750? 3 is 2.2 or something. Tesla is SpaceX proxy. I don't know about that. We really have to wait until after the IPO to see what happens. My take is only Alphabet has AI good enough that they can eat their own dog food for now, a decade. Everyone else is in a hype cycle, stuck on overpriced NVIDIA infrastructure they cannot scale. I disagree with that. I think AI is absolutely killing it. I use it every day. Claude Design, Claude here on spreadsheets, on finance, writing. There is an absolute explosion of AI value all over the place. And look at the margins. The margins are exploding now in more and more companies. So we will see in the second half of 2026 and especially in 2027, absolute profit explosion because of AI. And that is what truly drives value. Mihovil says it's interesting Trump reflection about investing into AI. Well, let's see if Trump still has the magic. Maybe he has. Lambo soon. Well, not for me. I'm buying Teslas. So that's the situation. The interesting thing about this is I'm in the middle of it, just extending the model, but it's very simple. What the problem is with the valuation of SpaceX, the inverse problem of what everyone thinks. Why I think it's undervalued. If you actually model an even reasonable approximation towards Anthropic on the XAI side, which I think is very realistic when you look at what they're doing, I think they will surprise on the upside and how they catch up to Anthropic. I think Anthropic will grow like crazy and keep growing like that because AI is actually highly effective. And then they have on top of that the compute business, and you know what just happened, right? You know that Google just made a giant deal. So let's go to Pioneer Lens Daily. Here's the latest on Pioneer Lens Daily. Let's reduce this here. Make this a little bigger. Where's my Pioneer Lens Daily now? Here. You know what just happened, and then we wrap it up. Here, look at this. Just look at this crazy story. Let's see if we have written everything here. Google to pay SpaceX 920 million monthly for XAI data center compute. This is just nuts. Out of nowhere, Google says they're also going to pay 920 million per month for Colossus to SpaceX. That's on top of the 1.25 billion or 1.5 billion per month Anthropic pays them. So out of nowhere, they're making another $12 billion at super high margins. Out of nowhere, just like this. And this is a little bit an indicator what is going to happen with SpaceX terrestrial build out, where Elon has the absolute lead in the world. People forget about this. They are now a hyperscaler of the first order because Elon has figured out how he builds these data centers much faster than anyone else. And they're already the biggest or one of the biggest, and they will be the biggest very soon before satellites. Now on the satellite side, it is very clear that they have nailed this. And the satellites, as I said from the very beginning, are very easy to build. Right? People got it all wrong. Even Jensen got it wrong. They all said, oh, it's so complicated. This will be years. No, the satellites are effectively done, and they will be done next year. And it will be no problem getting these things actually up and running because they're actually, as Elon said, easier than the Starlink satellites, which I don't know if I totally agree, but they're definitely easier for SpaceX to build than the Starlink satellites were to build in the beginning. And so what do you do then? Then they can shoot these satellites up and Starship will be ready, which we modeled out. We showed that it's actually not even required for Starship to be reusable. And then it's game over. Then you have the infinite money glitch, assuming AI actually keeps working and keeps improving. And I think it will, even if it flatlines, there will be massive upside from here, but it won't flatline in capability. And there you have the whole situation.
We do intend with the SpaceX AI satellites to allow people to put whatever GPU or TPU they want. So if NVIDIA GPUs can be put on it, Google TPUs can be put on it, Amazon Trainiums, or any other chips that you want to put on can be put on. We will also offer our chips in the future. And I think we also want to offer our software, our AI software as well in the future. But it will be such that you can run anyone's AI hardware or software on the Tesla AI satellite, or SpaceX AI satellites. Yeah.
That was another Freudian slip. It's so funny. There is like 100% a merger going to happen. Elon saying two important things here. First of all, they will open the satellites up to have everyone's GPU. They're basically building a hull. They're building a scaffold in space. They're building the ultimate data center of infinite size for everyone else to put their GPUs in, plus themselves to put their GPUs in. I can't even tell you guys how big that business is. Like, they will suck up the entire AI build out into SpaceX. They will suck up the entire AI build out of Earth into SpaceX. Let that sink in. It's inevitable, probably by 2029 or 28, that they will suck up everything because it's vastly superior as a model. I modeled it out in November. We will refine the model, of course, but I was right initially already. Like, I had the back of the napkin right, that this is just a vastly superior economic model for all AI data centers that will ever be built. And they will have a monopoly on 100% of all human data centers. I mean, it's just completely nuts. Now, you also have to understand, or at least model out, what the demand will be for data centers. And I made it very clear. I think we will have 30 to 50% growth forever on data centers, because there is no limit to the amount of intelligence you need. I don't know if the actual build out will be 50%, but the equilibrium will be extremely high, above 20% long term. I know it breaks all economic models. I know it breaks all financial models. It breaks everything. But the problem is, it's just true once you understand the nature of intelligence, and that there's, of course, no limit to the intelligence demand, because it's the equivalent of direct progress in human value creation. So there will be no end. And now Elon cornered everything. It sounds all completely crazy. It's just exactly what it is, the more you think about it. And the more I model this out, the more I think it's vastly undervalued, SpaceX. That doesn't mean the stock's not going to crater after IPO at some point, because it's still faith required or insight when this all will happen. And there will be FUD and there will be doubt before it really scales. But there is not much lag between now and when it scales. So it's going to be a pretty wild ride. Yes, Austin 4. That's why we're working very hard on the model to understand how much it is undervalued. I think it's massively undervalued. And I did not think that this morning. Only after I saw that our model has a problem, that all models have a problem, because there's something broken on the DCF theory. I mean, not on the theory, but on how it's being executed when it comes to SpaceX. Waymo needs more LiDAR. Exactly. Market is starting to price in Fed rate hikes, which I think is unlikely because high inflation, strong jobs report. Yes, Infinity finite. You're totally right. I think the market is starting to price it in, but I think it's an excuse of the market. They just want to take profit. And I also But I think you're generally directionally right. And I think you're also double right saying it's very unlikely to happen. How can they do this when they can't make the cars work? This is actually a good question, Neil. You can argue they can't even make FSD work. It took so long. How are they going to make this work? But you have to understand that this whole AI satellite and launch business is actually much easier than FSD. That's the ironic, insane thing. It's just much easier. Not building Starship, but they have proven they have already built. Starship already works. So there is no doubt. They shoot this thing to space. It did it. The test flight version 13 delivered the payload. That's it. It's done. The reuse is actually much less important than people think. The best driver for SpaceX is index funds. Well, the problem is that S&P is not going to include them, so that driver is gone. They have some other index funds, but S&P is not going to happen this year. So that's a glitch. One more reason why I think these shares are going to drop. That's a good point, Joe. When it scales, tells me when does anything Elon is working on starts to scale. That's actually not true, Neil. Think about Starlink. Starlink is absolutely scaling. It's in full scaling mode. Look at the numbers. FSD is absolutely delayed. Optimus we will see, but I wouldn't count my chickens, but we're also delayed. But you have to see Starlink is absolutely scaling. And if Starlink can scale, Neil, you have to be very critically thinking about it. You're right that FSD is totally delayed and no one knows. Optimus is also delayed, no one knows. But on the SpaceX side, Starlink is absolutely scaling. And when you then understand that these AI satellites are easier than the Starlink satellites, says Elon, I would say they are probably equivalent. They will scale. They will scale now. NASDAQ 100 funds are enormous. I agree, but of course, S&P 500 funds are even more enormous. So yes, there will be index fund inclusions, and that will drive up the share price. I totally agree, but it's going to be less than half of what was expected because S&P is not happening. That's all I'm saying. Thoughts on proxies like EchoStar? I don't like proxies because they're not rational proxies. They're emotional proxies. So yes, they might go up. Even as Space, SPCE of Richard Branson might go up, but it's just not really connected. So it's gambling or momentum plays. Sure, they will go up. There are proxies, but it's not rational. It's not rationally connected, in my opinion. I mean, it might be. But I'd rather focus on SpaceX. We must stop Elon. I'm so tired of all this winning. Well, definitely not winning on Friday. So that was that. I don't want to make it too long tonight, but now you know what I'm thinking. Yeah, I think the other space stocks, you might get lucky. They might go up. They might benefit from these cheaper orbital launch capabilities, but Mark says NASDAQ 100 is the force fed into only trade. Yeah, I think super short term, there will be drivers for SpaceX to go up. I agree. But they will be burned through very quickly in a month or so, and then good luck. Good luck. I think it will, when I look at all the hype and the index funds and everything short term, I think my initial prediction that we go up at IPO and then go down and then go up end of the year, I think it will go up even more than I thought now at the IPO, and then drop harder and potentially stay down longer because the S&P is gone. So I just do not believe we see a 1.75 trillion IPO go to 2.5 trillion and then from there go to 10 trillion. That's not going to happen. We are going to drop in between. And that is when you buy, because I do think this thing is fundamentally totally undervalued. But from a momentum play, it will be overvalued. Not overvalued, it will be priced too high. Pod asks what percentage Tesla and SpaceX merge in the next 2 years, Joe. I would say 95%. 95%. Dave Johnson says correct about the forced buying by index funds creating a floor. Well, I disagree on the floor. It's going to be a driver up as long as it happens. But once it's done, it's not a floor. the law was 1 year. Insiders changed it to 15 days. At least SpaceX has a viable plan, and dropping OpenAI will be more force feeding. Yes, I think the exciting thing about SpaceX is it will just be hyped up and has to drop tactically in between. And that's when you buy, because I think actually SpaceX is going to the moon. How many Tesla shareholders are going to sell Tesla stock to buy SpaceX stock? Well, who knows? Maybe all of them, but they were not going to sell all their shares. They're going to sell a little bit. And of course, no one wants to really sell their Tesla shares. I saw news 6th or 11th of June. What's 11/6? That ASML and TerraFab will announce something useful? Sure. So let's see what's going to happen. These are crazy times. I can tell you one thing. We are working very hard on building out Pioneer Lands. Our analytics team, we have now 5 people coming in, students, but very smart students, and they will be on it, and it's going to be very good. And what I see already is this is urgently needed. We need to model all this stuff out because it's going to be crazy. What's going to happen here is crazy, guys. We live through the most interesting time ever as we speak. We are also building out our AI systems for improved publishing and all these things. You know that we are making a lot of progress. I show you one last little feature. You can see it on Pioneer Lands daily. This is very experimental, but here, look, we have breaking on X now. Look at that. Randy Kirk has the headline. This reads people's X feeds that I curate based on what I'm reading and turns it into actually essays. Look at this cool stuff. You have to check this out. Debate intensifies over Tesla SpaceX merger mechanics and valuation ratchets. It's even me included here. I wasn't doing this. So we have all these different people. It accumulates the feeds and then writes a very nice little essay on it. Let's see if the essays look good. Look, we have a real essay here. Analysts and investors are debating the mechanics of a potential Tesla SpaceX merger with stock ratchet provisions emerging as a central sticking point. I mentioned the stock ratchet provisions. How does it even know that? Did it watch the... How did it do that? Interesting. Blah, blah, blah. Joe Bhakti contends a ratchet provision is not optional. Without one, game theory alone could sink the deal. If SpaceX market cap were to fall below Tesla's, merger approval odds would collapse. And that uncertainty would damage both share prices. This is genius. Look at the writing. This is our magic. This is our magic system now. We are accumulating these news, and you can read it on Breaking on X here. It's very, very hot. This is what we are doing in our free time. We are building the future of citizen journalism, citizen opinions with this new Breaking on X feature. This is how it looks like. Can you even imagine here? Starlink V3 satellites to deliver 10x bandwidth by satellite starting late 2026. Sawyer Merritt, Elon Musk, Joe Bhakti, see? I'm looking forward to space-hardened end-to-end neural net Optimus. Yes. Zombie stocks. Trump will use government money if needed to ensure the success of US AI companies. The Chinese cannot be allowed to win. Yeah, this will be rigged all over the place. So I think you guys enjoyed that. I need to run. I have a little appointment. But thank you so much for tuning in. And we have a lot to come. This is an exciting week. I hope not too exciting on the downside. Let's take a last look on this freaking bloodbath. Don't be too scared. I do not think this is sustainable, this little crash. And then we go from there. And then we have the IPO, and we will be much smarter. Then we have the World Cup launch and potentially Cybercap launch. So the next week will be a little extreme. Let's see what happens. I'm ready. We are going to tackle whatever comes our way. Okay, thank you guys so much. Enjoy your Sunday. From Duisburg to, what was the creek named in Phoenix, in Arizona? From all over the world. And you guys have a beautiful Sunday. Bye-bye.